Thank you. Thanks. Okay. I don't know if you can see this picture or not, but this is God's other door to me. And I chose this title, and it's funny because when I woke up this morning, I was reading Edgar Casey. And did you read his saying today? It said, "Open your hearts to those of the unseen forces that surround the throne of grace, beauty, and might." I thought, I can do that. Don't scare me though, God, okay? I can do that. But I wanted to share with you my experiences in hospice, when I worked in hospice, because it touched my heart, and it shows that we're never alone. And when it's time for you to transition, not a day before or a day after, there'll be the other side is there waiting for you. You know, in God's other door, I'm always knocking on that door. Come on, just let me look in. You got a peephole, just let me look. He says, that's in here. Look in here, right, Christopher? Christopher, you're just fun to pick on, that's all. Okay, so I worked the morning shift, and going on my rounds, I'd go in to, get people up, get them going. And I walk in this one lady's room, and I'm not going to use names because of HIPAA. I walk in this one lady's room, and she goes, I get her up, and she goes, "Who is that person sitting on the end of my bed?" And here's me. I says, "I don't know. Are they talking to you?" "Well, I'm just sitting here watching them." And I said, "Well, ask them what they want." She goes, "No." And I said, "Okay." So we got her dressed and went on and went to the next room. That night, after that woman was talking, that night she passed away. Then the next day I come in. This happened all throughout the time I worked. I went into another gentleman's room. Lights are out, curtains are closed. I get him up and I says, "Are you ready to get up?" And he goes, "It is so bright in here." He goes, "Can you shut the lights off and the curtains?" And I'm going, how am I going to do that? And I said, "Okay." And I said, "What's in that light?" And he goes, "I don't know." He goes, "I can see in it." He goes, looks like a bunch of people or something." I says, "Keep looking at it." He passed away the following morning. So every room that I go in, and somebody always asks me who was in there, what was going on, came to follow not too long after that, they transitioned. And so I walk in this one lady's room, little teeny thing, like you, Melinda. And she's talking to somebody. And she didn't see me come in, so I stood at the door and I waited. And she's having this full-blown conversation. And I could feel the energy, but I couldn't see the forms yet. And I'm sitting there listening, and she turns around and looks at me, looks back at who she's talking to, and says, and then points to me, "Can she hold him?" And apparently they said yes, and she turns around and looks at me and goes, "Put your hand out." And I went. She took 3 times from whoever she was talking to and put 3 things in my hand, 3 times. And I'm going, "Oh my God, what is she putting in my hand?" She looked at me, she goes, "What are you going to do with them?" So I went like this. And she goes, "Good place for them, you're going to need them later." And I went, "Oh man." Okay. And then there was one gentleman where I was afraid. He was a Marine, I can tell you that, but he was afraid to transition. And I'd go in his room and, "You up?" And he'd go, "Sit with me." Okay. See, I had a whole nother floor to get up. And I said, okay, so I'd sit there and I'd grab his arm, and I always rubbed their arm. It was very comforting to him to rub their arm and then rub their hair. And I was rubbing his arm and stuff, and I went to leave, and he grabbed my hand again. And he says, "Don't leave me." And I said, okay. So I sat there. The nurse comes in, looks at me, and I'm going, I got to give him a minute, right? And he said, "It's going to be okay, isn't it?" And I said, "Of course it is." He transitioned that night. Yeah, it was an honor to me to help these people, get ready or prepare to transition. I had one lady, though, she was a hoot. I'd go in every morning, "You ready to get up? Am I dead yet?" She did. And I would say, "Oh, dear, if you're dead, we're in trouble." I said, not yet. I said, that's between you and your God. Well, why am I still here? And I says, I don't know, but you can get up and go find out. And and go back to sleep. She didn't want nothing to do with it. She just wanted to be gone, but that's not my choice. But then I have another story about my mom. When my mom transitioned, I told her all the time, Mom, come see me. You know, let me know you're okay. And we used to meet at Heather Gardens across the street where I live at a pond, and we'd sit and talk all the time. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Okay, this is what the pond usually looks like, okay? And in my dream, we sat right next to it. In my dream, my mom was across the street on the other side, sitting on a bench, swinging her legs, and she said, CoCo, let it be. She had a hat that had let it be on it, and I said, fine. You know, and so this was what it looks like when it's thawing out from the winter. So time went on, and it got really cold in the winter again, and I was driving around, and I'm going, no way. And there's that. Yeah, is that not beautiful? And what was so fun, I don't know if it was just for me or not, but people were walking by it, and here's me. Are you not looking at that? Do you not see that? You know, and it's like, oh, Mom, you gave me an angel. You know, but isn't that beautiful? So if we just look and we just listen and watch, the other side is always, always trying to communicate with us. There was a cat in the 60s. His name was Oscar, okay? And in Rhode Island, he was the resident nursing home, okay? And this cat, they brought him in because it livened people up. It gave them a chance to care. And so this cat, they noticed every time somebody was getting ready to transition, the cat would go curl up with them. And that cat was so accurate, they would call the family in. They would call the family in to come in, and the family, well, how do you know this? Oh, we just have a feeling. And it was because of the cat named Oscar. The cat scan. Oh, that was good. Oh, yeah, that's true. I like that. But if you just tune into that, you'll feel energy. And some people maybe see him all the way. I had one couple that I assisted the gentleman in for a very long time, then he passed away. And his wife, she was a tough one. I really liked her. She was tough. And she got put in a hospice situation. And I'd get off work and go visit her. And we'd sit there, and she was the type that, what am I doing here, right? You could just feel it. And I started rubbing her arm, and I'm sitting there rubbing her arm, and I could feel it come into the room. And I looked over at her, and her labor was her breathing was real labored. So I looked over at the wall, and her husband was standing. This is a year after her husband died. He was standing against the wall with his leg up like this, and he had a top hat on, and he tipped his hat to me. I said, oh, you're coming to get her. She died that night. Yeah, she died that night. So we're never alone. We are never alone. Edgar Casey, I love what he said. When he would go into a room to do a talk, he couldn't tell the difference of who was in this world and who was from the other world. He says that's how they're all around us. They're everywhere. And I think God has other doors out throughout the universe, all over the place. Portholes, gateways, whatever you want to call them. I think God has them everywhere. And then Debbie's mom, we were sitting there. She was getting ready to transition. We were in the hospital, and I was rubbing her arm. This was powerful. This was so powerful. And I was rubbing her hair, sound asleep. And I'm sitting here, the bed's here, and the door's there. All of a sudden, I felt this energy come through the door, and I went, oh, my God. And I thought, there's not much that makes me want to get on my knees. I feel like I should get on my knees. And I'm like, and it moved around this way. It came around the back of her head. She woke up and looked at me. She goes, CoCo, Jesus is here. And I went, uh-huh. That explained it. You know, no, that energy was so pure and so beautiful, and just huge. But it came in through the door, followed around the back, and went right to the back of her head. And it was, she just woke right up. And I'm like, well, he comes and visits you all the time or what? But then we got Linda home that day, and then we were in the room with her, and Jackie was in there, and we were doing the rosary. Well, okay, Jackie was doing the rosary. And all of a sudden I hit Jackie, and I said, do you see that? And it's like clouds parted around her head, and the Blessed Mother was dropping rose petals all around her. And she transitioned that night. Or day, was it that day? Yeah, so she transitioned right after that. But it's always, God's always there. In Course in Miracles, I love it because it says, it isn't that God isn't always there, it's just that we only call out to God when we're in trouble or need something. But God's always there. Talk to God. Talk to him like a friend. You know, talk to him like Pastor Susan. You're in trouble. Okay, so I want to show you the different doors I think God has all over the place. Walking through Heather Gardens. I'm starting to wonder if Heather Gardens is a big porthole or something. Okay, you see this right here? I was in a yoga class, and this was 11 o'clock in the morning, okay? And the instructor says, CoCo, come here. And he pointed, the windows pointed west, and he said, what is that? And I'm looking at it, and I got my camera out, took a picture of it, zoomed in on it. I said, oh my God, it's a porthole. And his son came up, and his son was probably about 9 or 10. His son goes, it's an angel. And I said, yeah, we're an alien. And he looks at me, and he goes, isn't that all the same thing? I thought, we'll go with that. But that was at 10:30, 11 in the morning. You just got to look. You just got to look. It's all, you know, we forget to look up at the sky anymore, don't we? Okay, I don't know. You can't really see this guy. This is over Cherry Creek Dam. It's hard to see. But there's a face up in there. Can you see it, kind of? And, you know, I couldn't see it with my naked eye. I saw it with the camera. And I thought, oh, see, cool, they're everywhere. And can you see this guy? You see his face? That's Heather Gardens again. He looks like a warrior, doesn't he? And then here's one of God's other portholes. Look at that. And I'm going like this. I'm looking at that. And I'm going, God, what would happen if you just jumped through it? Wouldn't that be cool if you could? But I think there's another one of God's doors. So, but the best door is the one that goes into your heart. That's because that's where God resides, in your heart, in your soul. But look out here in this world. Look all over the place. God's everywhere. Thank you.